of those people that tends to cringe internally when I hear someone say literally when they don't literally mean literally. I mean, intended meaning still has a purpose, right? Speaking of, now that we're getting into, dare I say it, winter, there's a few winter buzzwords that go around that tend to get overused and misused. And I'm here to make sure you're using them the right way. That's this week's Heather's Weather Wise. First up, the OG social media clickbait, the polar vortex. Now, a couple of years ago, I did a Heather's Weather Wise explaining exactly what the polar vortex is and why it exists. You can go back and watch that anytime, but here's the Cliff Notes. The polar vortex is a huge area of low pressure over the North Pole, which typically houses some brutally cold air in winter. It is always present, even if it's not dropping a blast of bitter cold air over your neighborhood. And not every wave of cold air is a, quote, polar vortex or a spawn of the polar vortex. The jet stream pattern is what matters. That's right, the jet stream, not your desire to blame your winter misery on something with a name. Trust me, when the polar vortex threatens to visit to the south, we'll give you a heads up. Now let's talk about something called a bomb cyclone, or bombogenesis. Yes, those are both legit meteorological terms, but they sound intense, so naturally clickbait sites love them. But let's dial it back for a sec and just talk science. A storm has to earn the term bombogenesis, and it does that by strengthening very rapidly. Specifically, the central pressure of the storm has to drop by at least 24 millibars within a period of 24 hours. Now, when that happens, you can expect some very strong winds and heavy precipitation, but for us in Buffalo, we tend to be fairly far away from those kinds of storms. And that's a good thing, because bombogenesis has been responsible for some legendary nor'easter-type storms. That being said, we can certainly have intense winter storms of our own without a bomb cyclone around here, thank you very much. Which brings me into the next buzzword, a blizzard. It's yet another meteorological term with a very specific set of criteria. It's also a tasty treat with a very specific set of criteria. Hey, they don't flip it upside down for you, it's free. Anyway, here's how a blizzard is technically defined. The biggest factor isn't falling snow, it's wind. Sustained speeds or frequent gusts have to be at least 35 miles per hour. Visibility has to be a quarter mile or less due to falling or blowing snow. And yes, that means you can actually have blizzard conditions without any clouds. And finally, the blowing and drifting has to last for at least 3 hours. So there you have it. I've said my piece on my winter weather buzzword pet peeves, and if I see any of you incorrectly using them on Twitter, I will literally scream. That's it for this week's Heather's Weather Wise. I'll see you next week with a new topic, but until then, remember it's good to be a geek.